The protagonist of this manhwa, Jin Jung-do, was just another unlucky hunter stuck with trash-tier skills and zero future. But everything flipped when he suddenly unlocked a wild power. He could draw cards that showed future events and hidden truths from the present. And that's not even the craziest part. These cards don't just give him info. Some of them come packed with the powers of actual legendary heroes, if he's lucky enough to pull the right one. Now that he's rocking this cheat code, he's got to gamble his way to the top, turning fate itself into his deadliest weapon. Let's rewind. It all started with this game called The Change, some mysterious future-level simulation with next-gen realism and wild battles. It flipped the world on its head by literally making dungeons full of monsters appear in real life. Jin Jung-do, a pro gamer, always dreamed of becoming a hero, like the badass mana users who fight in those dungeons. But when it was finally his turn, reality hit like a truck. His abilities were complete garbage. Straight up useless. Just when he thought all hope was done for, the real universe hit him up with a skill set upgrade. Something that would finally let him chase that dream of becoming a true hero like the ones in his game. A system notification lit up, warning him that a dungeon break was incoming and his mission was to wipe out every last monster that crosses over. If he succeeded, the universe promised a big reward. Time limit was locked in 101 hours and 27 minutes. Then chaos hit. Monsters started spawning out of thin air, loaded with creepy body armor and freaky weapons. Their roars literally shook the whole damn dungeon. Jin Jung-do stood there, gripping his weapon, with Lu Shan next to him. Lu noticed that these monsters looked even nastier than the usual noble ones, but Jin just told him to chill. Suddenly, the game pinged Jin, asking if he wanted to use the combined draw. He went for it. And boom, the blessing of the Saintess activated, and with Lu Shan's solid luck in the mix, it was the perfect combo. Mana started flaring from Jin's weapon, the vibe got intense, and the energy around him skyrocketed. Light cracked off his blade, and he yelled out to make way for Zhang Fei. Right then, the monsters came charging, but Jin's scream triggered Lion's Roar, cutting their attack power by 30%. The system flagged him for pulling aggro from all of them. Without wasting time, he popped his spinning tiger chariot strike and sliced through those bastards like butter. While he was out there wrecking shop, someone new showed up. Zhang Fei, a straight-up beast of a warrior, level 99. With this new squad, Jin went full throttle, pulling out all his skills, sword mastery, hand-to-hand, spear fighting, MMA, everything to obliterate the enemy swarm. But then, out of nowhere, one sneaky monster came in from behind and clocked Jin right on the head. His instincts kicked in hard, and with one last surge of strength, he spun around and split the monster's skull clean in half. Finally, the dungeon went dead silent. The fight was over. Jin was still breathing heavy, totally wrecked from the final blow. It stung like hell, but he pulled off a win. In this wild-ass game, heroes from the past can guide the future and even stash hidden loot that can flip the entire power scale. Jin's ready for whatever this game throws next. While other kids were out playing tag or soccer, Jin Jung-do was always curled up with comics and web novels, idolizing those main characters who lived epic lives. One day he found a video game and instantly got hooked. Played it non-stop, and turns out he was cracked at it. So cracked that he went pro, stacking up decent scores, even earning the nickname Jin Judo, forever second place. But no matter how good he got, he was never the protagonist. Then came February 22nd, 2024, the day everything changed. Real life started acting more like a game than the actual games. Dungeons popped up all across the city, unleashing endless waves of monsters. At the same time, people who could use magic or wield weapons started appearing. They were called mana users, and just like that, they became more famous than athletes or celebs. Their interviews lit up giant digital billboards. They were the real-life heroes Jin always wanted to be. After watching the mana users steal the spotlight, Jin made up his mind to become one too. 8 years flew by, and the dream still felt just as far away. Now he's stuck with a drinking habit, chasing something that never happened. His test results from the National Mana User Association are depressing. His so-called talents, communication, gaming, patience, are worthless in a fight. He slammed his head against his apartment door, tears building up, staring at that paper like it betrayed him. 10 years of grinding and sacrifice led to this. Still trying to calm himself down, he whispered that maybe he was never meant to be the main character. Jin walks into his apartment ready to crash all day since there's zero work tomorrow. But the chill vibes vanish in seconds when he sees someone already inside, smiling like she owns the place, saying she's been waiting for him. Dude straight up nopes out, thinking he walked into the wrong apartment. But then it hits him, nah, this is his place. So he turns back and demands to know who the hell she is. She drops her name, Winry Makina, a proxy for the universe itself. Says she's here to give him a gift because he's the guy who made the first miracle. Jin's just standing there completely lost, thinking this has to be some cult BS. Maybe she's here cause she flopped so hard at life that it counts as a miracle. Winry's like, nope, not even close. Turns out, he's only the second human ever to hit level 3 in communication since the universe came into existence. So now the universe wants to send him a little thank you gift, and she's hoping he'll take it. She reaches out with a solid handshake, and this weird magical glow starts leaking from her hand. Yellow aura flashing hard, eyes blazing red, her whole vibe going ultra. As the glow ramps up, she drops the words grant skill. Boom! The whole apartment blows up in smoke like some magician's final act, and she's gone. Jin's standing there in a foggy mess, brain scrambled, trying to process if this was real or just wild hallucination. Next thing he knows, his skill set's been updated. Observation, status window, resistance, and some weird one called comprehensive skill info draw all just got unlocked. Now he's even more confused, thinking this random chick just dumped some unknown hacks into his system. Out of nowhere, her voice floats and saying they get that he's probably going through it right now, but he should check the status window for answers. Before fading out, she also says it was an honor meeting the dude who pulled off the first miracle. Jin's losing grip on reality, blaming the whole fever dream on too much drinking, but then the status window actually appears. It's real, floating right in front of his face, with a new button labeled info draw. He taps it, not because he knows what it does, but because that's the only one he doesn't recognize. And just like that, the info gotcha drops a glowing golden capsule into his hand. He barely blinks and it pops open by itself. The system hits him with a message. He just scored some rare intel. His eyes shoot wide open as he reads the contents. In the second week of April 2031, the lottery winning numbers are 1, 11, 17, 26, 47, 39, with bonus number 23. First info drop of the day, doesn't even burn any mana. Total cheat code. Flashback to a day earlier, Choi Chul-yun, the guild master, gathered everyone to announce that guilds have been going hard over high-quality mana stones. But thanks to Jin Jungdo and his nonstop persuasion of Mr. Young, that legendary dungeon explorer, they landed a contract on a brand new dungeon. Everyone in the guild goes wild with celebration, crowding Jin and asking how he pulled off such a banger of a deal. Word is Mr. Young's got a temper and already rejected juicy offers from the bigger guilds. Then Joe Hackery, another guild member, throws shade at Jin, calling him a glorified salesman. Says the guy's got away too easy, just schmoozing people and pouring drinks. Meanwhile, Joe's out there risking his life and busting his ass in deadly dungeons. Dude's clearly pressed. Choi Chul-yun isn't having it. He steps in, tells Joe to shut it, even says he would have fired his ass on the spot if he wasn't so damn skilled. Joe doesn't get why it's a big deal, though. He thinks Jin's job is a cakewalk, and people hyping him up all the time is just getting annoying. Then he storms off. After that, Chul-yun apologizes to Jin on Joe's behalf and vents that he seriously would have kicked him out if he wasn't so valuable. He then hands Jin the incentive he promised if the contract went through. At long last, Jin's got enough saved, 300 million won for the awake fee. That's the ticket. He's officially about to become a mana user. Later on, Jin pulls up to the Awakener. It's this magic machine that turns regular folks into mana users and figures out what kind of talents or powers they've got. Out of nowhere, he spots the guild members and the guild master, even though he thought it was just going to be him and Seo-yun rolling up. Choi Chul-yun, all hyped, tells Jin not to act like that since 2 of their guild members are getting awakened today. A person just walked out of the Awakener, and now it's Seon's turn. She gives Jin a wave and casually calls him Jungdo, which low-key annoys him since he specifically told her to call him Mr. Jin when they're around the guild. As she heads in, Jin notices Joe Hackery lurking around and starts wondering what the hell he's doing here. He figures it probably has something to do with Seo-yun since he's been catching Joe Hackery throwing those obvious stares at her. Then, Jin sees Choi Jae-won stats pop up. Dude's clearly not making it into a combat squad since his mana's low. He's got 4 talents, and the main one is alertness. Jean then overhears some random dude and chick chatting about how the Awakener's basically a giant lottery machine. If someone hits the jackpot, they get tons of combat-ready talents. But if not, they're screwed. Even when they level up and unlock a skill, it's tied to their talent. So if the talent sucks, the skill's garbage too. That means if their talents are useless in dungeon runs, boom, 300 million won down the drain. Jean starts sweating hard hearing all that. Suddenly, the Awakener opens and everyone's hyped to see Sion's results. Her stats flash across the screen: 27 mana, 11 talents, and her main one is Saintus. The crowd goes wild. It's rare for even a seasoned 3-year veteran to hit 30 mana, and here she is, fresh out of the Awakener with 27 and 11 talents. That's wild, considering the Korean record was 13. Her main talent being Saintus just sends everyone spiraling, since it's the same one that the French user Messiah has. Everyone's yelling that the best rookie of all time just dropped. People try to get near her, but Choi Chul-yun shuts it down, standing tall like a bodyguard and proudly flexing that she's part of his guild and that his guild is family, so people need to back off. Some folks start asking since when he's been this protective of his members. Even big-name guilds are already beefing to snatch her up, but she ignores them all and runs straight to Jin Jung-do. He congratulates her for hitting the jackpot. Seo-yun still feels like it's all a dream, but she knows she's got to toughen up and handle the fame now. Next up, it's Jin Jung-do's turn. Seo-yun gives him a little pep talk, saying she's got a good feeling. He steps into the Awakener and finds it pretty standard. There's this crystal ball in front of him, and he's got to slap both palms on it. That's Odin's Eye. The transformation takes 10 minutes. He's buzzing with excitement, thinking about how he's finally about to be a mana user and live the dream he's had since forever, chasing after his hero fantasy. But the results hit like a truck. Mana, 7. Talents, 3. Main talent, communication. The guild members look hella disappointed. Joe Hackery straight up smirks, clearly pleased and acting like he already knew this would happen. Jean, though, is shattered. The system even tells him the Awakener couldn't detect any combat-oriented talents, so they strongly advise against any combat squad activity. As he steps out, he's staring at the ground. The guild master and everyone else is watching him with worried faces, but then he lifts his head, forces a smile, and says it's no biggie. People lose this kind of draw all the time. He plays it cool and says he's fine. Later, the Awakener staff hands over the mana watches and licenses, explaining that it's basically their ID now, and they need to keep it on them 24/7. As they're collecting them, Seo-yun tells Jean to go home early and chill. Jean reassures her that he's good and not getting into the combat squad isn't the end of everything. That night, though, dude's spiraling. He drinks heavy to numb it all. It feels like the sky just collapsed on his head. He's been chasing the mana user dream ever since he quit being a pro gamer, and now it feels like that dream shattered, all because of some trash tier talent. That's how he's been thinking up until now. But suddenly things shift. He's in full disbelief. 2024 is coming next year, and he's got way too many thoughts running through his head about who that mysterious girl was and why she gave him this cracked-out skill. Skills are only supposed to show up after a level up or from skill stones found in dungeons. This ain't adding up. He's completely lost trying to figure out what's going on, but one thing's crystal clear. He's got a skill that can pull info from the future, and that changes everything. Jean decides he needs more info, so he taps the info draw on the status window again, but out of nowhere, that weird-ass creature, the info gotcha, starts freaking out. It lets him know that every draw costs 1 mana. Jin's like, cool, whatever, and gives the green light. But the results are straight-up trash. It spits out junk like the neighbor's cat is pregnant. The biggest storm Korea's ever seen will hit in 102 years, 30 days, 22 hours, and 17 seconds, and that Winry is a maid from another dimension. Not a single thing is actually helpful. Jean gets it, this is all part of some game-like talent, but this draw system sucks real bad. After wasting all that mana, he's got 1 left in the tank. But then he notices something wild. The changes are happening in real time. Normal users got to use their mana watches to track stat changes, and those only update through an Awakener. With the status window skill, though, he can see his stats change even during a dungeon raid. That's a game changer. Still, even though mana replenishes every 24 hours, someone with 100 total capacity and a full 100 mana will only regenerate 7 in a day. So even if he wanted to, he couldn't use most of his skills again. Drawing info is out too. Honestly, the whole thing is a terrible deal. But since mana capacity can be leveled up, he figures he should still be grateful to have this busted skill. Then the info gotcha randomly drops another crystal. This time, it glows red as it pops, and Gene scores some ultra-rare info. It tells him that on April 14th, 2030, at exactly 5 p.m., a dungeon is going to pop up near Guanaxan Mountain. The dungeon's name is Treasure Mole Den. Gene locks in on that info and heads for the location. The info gotcha starts acting like a GPS, telling him to make a left in 300 meters and then go straight. Gene keeps moving, wondering how much farther until he gets there. Eventually, he arrives. The navigation ends, and Gene just stands there a little lost. He checks his phone and sees the time. It's just 1 minute before the dungeon's supposed to show up. Holding his breath, he waits. And right on time, the dungeon entrance spawns in front of his eyes. Jin's hyped. Never expected to hit jackpot on his very last draw. But this isn't some average dungeon. It's a treasure dungeon. Only 2 others are known worldwide. The Treasure Dragon's Den in England and the Treasure Panda's Bamboo Forest in China. Most dungeons disappear after being cleared, so they're never named. But sometimes a dungeon earns a name, either because it caused some massive disaster during a dungeon break, or because some god-tier item was discovered inside. Think Excalibur in England, or the Green Dragon Crescent Blade in China. Gene gulps. This might be his shot at getting weapons on par with what the strongest mana users rock. Treasure dungeons don't have monsters, but you gotta pass a test to earn a legendary weapon. So technically, he's got a chance to bag something big. There might still be other dangers, but he figures he can use his observation skill to survive. He puts his hand on the entrance, but a thought creeps in. If there's a monster in there, he's basically dead meat. Still, he tells himself he'd be stupid to fold a royal flush when he's holding quad aces. He walks in and moves forward. But after a while, he groans. He's somehow back where he started, even though he didn't make a single turn. Then he notices the walls and realizes what's up. This is either an illusion or something enchanted with a disorienting spell. He hates wasting mana, but he activates his observation skill. Hidden info detected. The wall's enchanted with an ultimate illusion spell. The spell breaks, and Jin shook. That was one of the highest tier illusion spells out there, and he just snapped it with one word. Still, he's not exactly thrilled about his stats. They're all over the place, and he desperately needs more mana. But damn, his skill is kinda cracked. He opens the next door and decides to just charge through and be done with it. Once inside, he's met with a bunch of people. Turns out they're the 7 Heavenly Kings. They look at him and start whispering that this is the weakest-looking challenger they've ever seen. But the fact that he broke through an ultimate illusion spell makes them pause. They decide to hold back and see what he's made of. Gene clocks that they're dwarves. One of them, Giz, compliments Gene for having sharp eyes. Dude figured out who they were without being told. Gene thinks to himself that it was pretty obvious. The dungeon's literally called the Treasure Mole Den, so that name was basically a dead giveaway. Giz congratulates Gene for clearing the first test and tells him the second test is to fight him. If Gene wins, he'll hand over the reward and let him out. Even if Gene loses, they'll still let him leave, so there's no need to get too anxious. Jin's got a confused look on his face. The idea of clearing the dungeon not being mandatory just doesn't sit right. Giz catches on to the confusion and asks about it. But before Gene can respond, Giz drops another bomb. 4 others already failed the test and left before Gene even showed up. Then he asks if word about them has already spread in Jin's world. Jin's all jittery when he admits he doesn't think so, at least for what he knows. Giz straight up says it looks like those people purposely kept this dungeon a secret and calls them a bunch of selfish imbeciles. But Gene, still confused, asks if by compete, he means like a boxing match or something. All the dwarves just lose it, laughing their asses off. They clown him hard, roasting humans for being barbaric and dropping jabs like his kind still settles beef with fistfights. They throw shade saying his race still needs a bit more evolution. Meanwhile, Giz stays chill, barely reacting, and tells Gene to come with him. As they walk, Giz casually mentions how the last guy who came before Gene tried to straight up stab him with a sword. So Giz had to rough the dude up a little, and after that he chilled out. Then Giz throws more shade, saying that maybe stabbing strangers is just how humans say hi. He even calls them straight up savages. Jin's fuming inside, wondering who exactly they think they're calling savages. But Giz makes it clear that yeah, he did give them the spar they wanted, and none of them even lasted more than a single hit. Gene starts spiraling a bit, thinking to himself that he's just a low-tier savage with barely 7 mana. Giz keeps going, saying this is exactly why they decided to compete by their rules instead, and he thinks it'll work better for Gene anyway. Gene, still irritated, questions why they even bothered bringing humans here if they think humans are that uncivilized. Giz shrugs it off, saying they honestly didn't want to, but it wasn't their call. Then he drops that he regrets swearing at guys. Jin's brain immediately clicks into mythology mode, thinking Giz might be talking about the guys, a sacred pact from Celtic lore that gives massive power but chains your actions. Break that pact, and your cursed's so bad it could kill you. Jin's brain's still running when Giz tells him to hop in. Once he steps in, Giz points to something and tells him to take a look. He says this is their masterpiece, built by the 7 Grandmasters themselves. A whole-ass TV and a gaming console. Jin's brain freezes. Giz scoffs, asking what's the holdup and if this tech is just too next level for him. Then he drops the real bomb. This is how they're going to compete. He tells Jin to take a seat while it loads. Jin's mind is already spinning. He used to be a pro gamer, but winning a game he's never even played is a long shot. Plus, this thing looks like it was cooked up by dwarves in a fantasy basement. Still, he rolls with it, going through the basic controls with Giz. But then, out of nowhere, he spots Zhang Fei and freaks a little. Giz notices and asks if something's up. Jin plays it cool, chuckling nervously and lying that it just looked familiar. Giz's SUS senses tingle. It seems off since tech like this is rare. Only a handful of dimensions even have it. Jin's dimension is one of them, but Giz obviously doesn't know that. While Giz teaches him the attack and guard buttons, Jin's already got it down. It's a bit different from what he's used to, but the characters are pure fantasy, the background design's weird, and still, it's basically Legends of Legend, the game he dedicated his youth to. After the quick tutorial, Giz offers a warm-up match, but Jin says screw that, let's get into it. Giz hums, kind of thinking he already gave up, but he agrees, whatever works for Jin. He hands over the controller and throws a jab, saying humans need to toughen up since he's already quitting before they even begin. Game starts. Jin grins. His gaming talent activates, 100% stat boost during gameplay. While playing, he tosses some heat back, saying it's actually the dwarves who need to toughen up. Turns out, he used to be a pro gamer who snagged second place twice in tournaments. Giz starts sweating, eyes narrowing. He never even got close to first. Jin stands up, smirking, asking for the payout. He's pumped to see what kind of treasure they're going to hand over. Giz hits pause on the moment, begging for 3 more rounds. Jin sighs, trying to tell him it's pointless. He's just going to take another L. Giz looks crushed. But then, the other 6 dwarves jump in, roasting him too. They tell Giz to stop being a smartass and remind Jin that he only beat the weakest one. They say Giz is weak and tell Jin not to act all high and mighty. Now, Jin's mad. They told him from the start that all he had to do was beat Giz. He lets them know real quick that he's not wasting his time grinding through this circus when it's clear there's nothing in it for him. Jin straight up demands the treasure they promised, but the whole squad starts glitching, blaming each other left and right. Then one of the dwarves throws out a spicy offer. If Jin beats the rest of them, they'll give him something way better than what was originally on the table. Jin gets curious, thinking maybe there's more treasure in the stash, so the dwarf starts humming and explains how they were just planning to give away random crap lying in storage. Basically what that lizard and fur face do in their dungeons. Jin instantly clocks who they're talking about. The dragon in England and the panda in China. He figures out these dungeon bosses can actually communicate even though they're from totally different places. The dwarf keeps going, saying that if Jin manages to clap the rest of them, the 7 Grandmasters will personally forge an item for him. A few minutes later, they're all lying flat, wrecked by Jin, totally shook that this dude comboed them into the dirt, and they couldn't even land a hit. Jin smirks and trolls them a bit, acting like he feels bad. Then he jokes that being a savage kind of made him forget how to be polite. He agrees that players deserve some fun, so this time he'll only play using 2 fingers. The dwarves start begging him not to go full menace mode again. After that, Giz scans Jin with some device and asks what the hell he was thinking showing up with those stats and only 7 mana. But then Giz freezes, his face goes dark. He sees something that doesn't make sense. Jin's confused, tries asking what's up, but Giz tells him to shut it and let him think. Then he yells for Michael to pull up because he can't wrap his head around this solo. Michael refuses, saying he's busy and wonders what's so hard about some basic math. Giz snaps and tells him to stop being a bum and see it for himself. He hands the device to Michael, who's already annoyed that Giz can't handle this on his own. Giz tells him to shut up and just look at Jin's talent. Michael checks it and sees communication level 3. He's like, is this even real? Jin is just standing there clueless, because to him level 3 doesn't even sound impressive. Michael thinks Jin's kind of slow, and asks if his world has zero info on talent levels. Jin admits he didn't even know talents had levels until literally yesterday. Then he remembers Winry Makina saying he's the second person since the creation of the damn universe to hit level 3 in communication. Michael is losing it now, calling humans straight-up savages. Then he sighs and explains he's got geniuses all over the place, and even they barely hit level 2. But level 3, that's a whole different beast. He says he himself has a level 3 talent called sword mastery, meaning he's mastered the original concept of swordsmanship and tapped into the universe itself. It's an OG talent, made in the actual real world. A level 3 talent lets someone go beyond reality itself. Michael says it's a legit honor to meet Jin. Giz jumps in saying he was going to make an item to boost Jin's mid-stats, but that could actually cause a disaster since Jin's rocking a level 3. That's why he dragged Michael in here. Michael can see the future, and he's the go-to guy for crazy problems like this. They're going to observe Jin's future combat style, so they can craft the perfect weapon for him. Jin kind of freaks out hearing that Michael can literally peek into the future. Michael's drained, though, says it's been a minute since he last did that, but he still compliments Jin's fighting style. It's got that fresh spice. Then both Michael and Giz start yelling at the other dwarves to get their asses to the workshop. They tell Jin to chill in a room for now, because with his current stats, he'd straight up combust in there. They bounce, leaving Jin sitting there wondering what kind of busted item they're about to make for him. A little later, they come back with the goods. Jin eyes it suspiciously and asks if they just pulled another junk item from the back room. Giz loses it, ranting that if they can see the future, that means they're bending time too. Plus, if Jin walks around flexing something too flashy, it'll just bring in drama he doesn't need. He tells Jin to return it if he's going to be picky. Jin mutters that he never said he didn't like it, just that they've got some serious temper issues. He wants to ask how to use it, but he knows they'll probably go full rage mode again, so he decides to figure it out with his own observation skills. Out of nowhere, Michael hands him a pouch as a gift for being the first level 3 human he's ever seen. Inside are some super high-grade mana stones. Jin can either sell them or use them. Jin stares at the stones, looking like he just found pure gold. The quality's insane, and they'd sell for bank. Michael then tells him to buzz off. Giz tells him to sit in front of him one last time. Jin sits down on the ground. Giz says this was the most fun he's had in centuries, and if fate's kind, maybe they'll meet again. Before Jin could even say thanks, he gets smacked in the head. Bam, back to the forest. Everything feels hella surreal, but with the armlet still strapped to his wrist and the headache pounding, he knows it was all real. That item was built with dwarf tech and dwarf power. Jin decides it's time to check things out up close using his observation skill. The so-called king of all weapons is some mysterious, overpowered item with no known rank. Most people would assume the ultimate weapon is a sword, but a real king of weapons should be packing the best traits of every weapon out there combined. This thing comes with 3 wild perks. First, it can morph into any weapon a user can imagine, as long as they feed it some mana. Second, it boosts all the user's stats by 10, so they get a power-up across the board. And third, it's straight up unbreakable. No matter what goes down, this thing ain't snapping. Jin's pretty impressed with the stat boost, but he's thinking about how legendary weapons like Excalibur or the Green Dragon Crescent Blade can one-shot monsters. Kind of feels like a king of weapons should be even more terrifying than that. He's curious about what form this weapon will take once someone injects mana into it and imagines something. Sure, these features are cracked for someone with actual combat talent, but Jin knows he's not that guy. Then it hits him, he's got an info draw. He already used observation twice, which burned 2 mana, so that leaves him with 5 mana. And if he counts the daily free draw, he's sitting on 6 draws total. Next day, Jin links up with Choi Chul-yun and casually asks about the other guild members, especially Seo-yun. Choi tells him she didn't show up because she came in yesterday, so she's taking the day off. Since both of them are users now, it only makes sense to let her rest a bit. Jin's cool with that and also notices the squad's missing. He wonders what they're up to. Choi says he gave them some downtime before the big raid. Jin's a bit confused since there are still 6 days left until the raid, but then it clicks. Choi's just keeping Joe Hackery out of his hair. Jin thinks Chul-yun's actually pretty chill even if he looks like a boss fight. Any other guild would have tossed him the moment he stopped being useful, but this guy's different. While Jin's processing that, Choi suddenly asks if he's joining the raid this time. No matter how cracked his talents are, he still needs to level up and snag that bonus skill. There have been times when a non-combat user pulls a clutch combat skill, and it ends up being super handy for the team. Jean gets hyped and admits that was the whole reason he joined a guild in the first place. Then Choi spots the bracelet and goes, "That looks like something his grandpa would rock." Jean awkwardly laughs and lies that someone gifted it to him. No one would ever guess he solo cleared a treasure dungeon for it. He's hoping this raid gives him a chance to finally test out the king of all weapons. Mr. Choi turns to Joe Hackery, asking the time, but he's no help, so the boss tells Jean Jungdo to double-check the info Young gave them using the analyzer, a magic tool that gives a dungeon rundown. Jean runs the scan, confirms it's a D-rank examination dungeon with a 10-man party cap. Matches exactly what the Seeker reported. They're running a little late, so the leader jumps right into the briefing. He says since it's a D-rank like Jean said, the main goal is harvesting mana stones. He also assigns Mr. Jean and Miss Seoyun to land the finishing blows since they need to level up fast. Joe Hackery throws in that Jin's talents aren't as trash as his own, and that if he felt that useless, he'd just stay home. Jean fires back that at least he's not the kind of clown who shows up late to a raid cause he couldn't hold it in. Joe Hackery figures Jin's chasing a bonus skill on his first level up and bets it'll be garbage. Jean tells him to just wait and see. The instructor breaks down the squad. Joe Hackery, Kim Tae-sik, Lee Jung-soo, Young Yuna, Yin Seo-yoon, and Jean Jungdo. 6 members total. Might seem like overkill for a D-rank dungeon, but then he reminds them of that last C-rank mess where they thought they were overstaffed and still ended up losing 2 B ranks. Only Mr. Choi and 2 C ranks made it out. So yeah, he drills into them that safety comes first, follow orders, and don't slack off. The raid kicks off, and a lizard man pops up in front of Joe Hackery, who immediately goes in. The others might think he's a pain, but they can't deny the dude's A-rank skills. He tells Seoyun to land the final hit since it's almost dead, then assigns Jean Jungdo to Mana Stone duty, make sure not a single one gets left behind. Seoyun cuts in, saying she should do it since she's the youngest, but Joe Hackery shuts it down. Says that once they enter a dungeon, rankings don't matter, they're all equal in the squad. Jean agrees, and says he'll make sure not to miss any. Joe Hackery tells everyone to keep moving and not fall behind. Seon's salty because she already got the first and second finishing blows and figures Jean should get the third and fourth to even it out. Joe Hackery says she's getting it twisted. Things don't have to be fair. He points out that they got the best rookies in Korea right now with power levels of 27 and 11 talents, while Jin stuck at 7 mana and only 3 talents. To him, it's obvious who deserves more investment for the guild's future. Seoyun snaps back that Mr. Choi would never think like that, but Joe Hackery reminds her he knows that too. Still, he's the one calling shots during the raid, and Mr. Choi already told them to follow the leader. The rest of the crew start talking about how tired they are of the guy. He doesn't stick to formation, doesn't train new members, and one of them says they'll file an official complaint once this is over. Jean already knows Joe Hackery's a jerk, but he respects Mr. Choi too much to let that slide. Still, if Joe knows they're planning to complain, why is he acting like this? What's he scheming? He's only got a fraction of the kills Seoyun has, but Jin's not even sure if that's something to be proud of or just depressing. So they pull up to the boss room, and one of the members throws out a snarky line like, "It's called the boss room for a reason." Sure enough, a monster's there, but Joe Hackery wipes it out in no time. The others start stressing, thinking shit's about to go south. One of them gets paranoid about a fight breaking out and says maybe they should just hand the boss over to Mr. Jean since Seon's been hogging all the XP so far. They remind Joe Hackery that this whole thing was supposed to help them level up, but instead Seoyun took everything while Jin's been left dry. Joe Hackery doesn't take that well. He straight up threatens everyone, says no one's going back, and, out of nowhere, stabs Kim Tae-sik right through the chest. Tae-sik drops to the floor, his lifeless son in his arms. Miss Young gasps. Lee Jin-soo loses it and calls Joe Hackery insane. Joe Hackery just launches at them, slicing both of their bodies with dual swords like it's nothing. Blood's dripping off his blades. Jean jumps in front of Seoyun, shielding her. Joe Hackery looks around, weirdly chill. He's surprised no one's screaming their lungs out. Usually people break when they see carnage like this, but not here. Jean finally speaks up, demanding to know what the hell Joe Hackery's doing, calling him a lunatic. Suddenly, mana starts pouring out from the dead bodies. Joe Hackery absorbs every bit of it, laughing like a psycho, saying it feels damn amazing. Jean watches, totally thrown off. He uses his observation skill and spots one of Joe Hackery's powers, corpse plundering. That's when Jin's face shifts from confused to pissed. He calls him a murder villain, accusing him of killing the 2 users that went missing during the raid. Joe Hackery straight up admits it. Tells Jin he's right, but too late. Says Jin's not walking out alive. He hadn't planned on revealing his whole evil plan this early, but seeing Seo-yoon awaken as a user pushed him over the edge. Joe Hackery's eyes are burning with that devil energy. He grins like a maniac and says Seo-yoon's got crazy talent. If he kills her and takes her energy, he'll get even stronger. Jin and Seo-yoon are standing there, tense and terrified. Joe Hackery admits he almost lost his mind waiting for the right moment. Then he raises his sword and tells Jin it's nothing personal. Pretending to be just an annoying bastard was all part of the act, so no one would suspect him. He lunges at Jin with his sword, promising to apologize with a clean death. Jin reacts instantly, summoning a sword from his bracelet to block the attack. He strains to push back against Joe Hackery's blade. Joe Hackery is confused by the strength of Jin's sword, then realizes he was holding back. He wanted to mess around before killing him for real. He expected his first strike to break the blade and rip off an arm, but then electricity starts sparking from Jin's sword. Joe Hackery clocks it. It's no ordinary weapon. Jin sees that Joe Hackery gets it. He knows this is the king of all weapons. Seo-yoon suddenly charges in and kicks Joe Hackery's sword hand. He kicks her away like she's nothing, tells her to wait her turn. He's going to rip Jin apart first. Seo-yoon crashes into the floor. Jin screams her name, panicking. Joe Hackery mocks the little heartfelt moment like it's a joke. Jin rushes to her, asking if she's okay. She groans and starts to get up. Joe Hackery approaches again, sword ready, saying let's savor the moment. Jin's head is racing. The power gap is massive. He doesn't think he can win, but he's not letting Seo-yoon die. She pulls herself up and says she's fine. That's when Jin gets an idea. He scans her with his observation skill and notices she has the absolute shield skill. He tells her to try using mana to form a magic shield. She's confused, doesn't know what he means. He says he'll explain later, just to hurry up. Seo-yoon pictures a shield in her mind, raises her hands to her chest, and boom, a shield forms. Jin's caught off guard. Joe Hackery notices it too. He's shocked a rookie who's never been in a raid can pull that off. He laughs and goes after the shield. Seo-yoon's struggling to keep it up while Joe Hackery blasts it with mana. He's getting pumped, says things are getting fun, and now he's got to go all in. Jin yells at Seo-yoon to hang tight. Then he turns to the boss monster and tells her to hang on too. They're out as soon as he kills this thing. Joe Hackery hears that and figures out Jin's plan. He gets pissed and slams the shield, shattering it. Seo-yoon hits the ground. Jin swings his sword and kills the boss, piercing it through the chest. He looks around, confused, but nothing happens. Joe Hackery starts laughing again, full villain mode. Says it was smart to try ending the raid by killing the boss, but bad news, teleporting out isn't instant. It takes 10 to 30 minutes. Then he laughs even harder and asks if anyone ever told Jin that. Jin's still clinging to the boss's neck, sword jammed in, saying something that Joe Hackery can't even hear. Joe throws some shade, mocking him like Jin's too stunned to talk. But Jin just snaps back, curses him, and triggers his skill like guess again. Joe's eyes go wide. Jin checks his status window. Dude just leveled up to level 2 and unlocked a new skill called Draw of Fate. He grins, saying that was the plan all along. The status window flashes, asking if he wants to use Draw. First time use costs 0 mana, so Jin hits yes. The prompt disappears, bright light flares up around him, and boom, a glowing card materializes. Jin grabs it like a boss, saying the game's flipped now. He summons his physical force, and Joe just stands there, jaw dropped. The dude's panicking, thinking Jin really made physical force out of mana alone. Fear punches through him. He needs to kill Jin before things go south. Joe dashes in, but Jin counters with his new weapon and catches Joe off guard. Even Jin's a bit stunned by the weapon's insane power. It's a double crescent halberd, and his status window drops a bomb. His summoned ally is freaking Lu Bu, the legendary Chinese warrior. Jin finds it wild. He's never held a spear in his life, yet his body moves like it's second nature. He's got the perfect grip, angle, speed. He's slicing like a pro without even thinking. That's the power of Draw of Fate kicking in. Joe keeps laughing, brushing it all off, saying none of this matters. Jin's still a noob in his eyes. No way he's beating someone with higher level and more talent. He screams, trying to assert dominance, but Jin's just chilling. He summons his powers. A full-blown thunderstorm forms above, and Joe yells at him not to get cocky. He's not scared, says no one can dodge his pinpoint thrust, Not even S ranks. But at the last second, Jean swings the halberd and blocks it clean, then slices Joe's head clean in half. Jean cusses him out to rot in hell. He's stunned. Did he really just beat Joe? Does this mean he's secretly S rank? He just crushed an A- like it was nothing. Sure, he might have limits, but those skills? Straight up S rank level. Only 9 users on the planet got that kind of power. He wants to dive deeper into Draw of Fate, but first he needs to check on Seoyun. He rushes over and tries waking her, but she looks off. Just when Jin's wondering how long till they get teleported out, Lubu speaks up, says Seoyun's got early signs of chi paralysis. She pushed her chi too far. Now she's paying the price. Jin freaks out, jumps back, and asks who he is. Lubu says Jin summoned him. So why is he acting all shocked? That's when Jin realizes he's talking to the one and only Lubu. Lubu tells him to just call him Fengxian. Says it's no big deal. She just overused her chi, recommends injecting chi into her Mingmen point to help. Jin recalls how some people called mana chi during meetings. He follows the advice, and as he injects the chi, Seoyun wakes up. Fengxian confirms it worked and says she'll be fine with some rest. Jin thanks him for saving them. But Fengxian flips it, says Jin should be the one getting thanked for freeing him from that boring-ass space. His time's almost up. He can't stay much longer. It was short, but he had fun. Hopes they'll cross paths again. Jin says he'd love that, but he's got to draw the right card. Fengxian believes it'll happen and fades out. Jin sighs, wishing he'd been quicker. A notification pops up. He successfully summoned a supreme being and gained a piece of its powers, rewards, and some newly unlocked skills. Back outside, Mr. Choi's out here wondering what's taking so damn long. The dungeon looks cleared, and then boom, Jin walks out carrying Seoyun. One of the workers, kind of stressed, asks about the other players, wanting to know if the dungeon's cleared. Mr. Choi snaps at him to go grab a stretcher. They've got a patient. The workers haul Seoyun off to the hospital. Mr. Choi turns to Jin and checks if he's okay. Jin's like, yeah, I'm good, but I got something to tell you. He spills the tea that Joe Hackery was a straight-up villain and a killer, then hands over the dungeon cam footage Yuna had on her. Mr. Choi watches it, and his anger just builds. He blames himself for ever bringing Joe Hackery on the raid, just because the dude had rank. Jin tries to chill him out, saying Joe Hackery played everyone. Turns out, that bastard had a skill that boosted his power whenever he killed other users. Mr. Choi then brings up the deaths from the last raid. Jin confirms it. Yep, Joe Hackery was behind that too. After all the killing, dude just left the evidence in the dungeon, knowing no one could find it until the whole thing got cleared. Mr. Choi curses under his breath. This wouldn't have gone down if the rule for mandatory dungeon cams for mana users hadn't been axed. Then he asks what happened next. Jin hesitates. He trusts Mr. Choi, but dropping the truth about the OP item he's holding could seriously screw things up for him and the people around him. So instead, he says sorry and just explains that the lizard man warrior they thought they'd killed actually mutated. Mr. Choi's stunned. Monster mutation is crazy rare, especially ones that can copy a random user's skills. And with the cam policy removed, even a D-rank dungeon boss mutating doesn't explain how Joe Hackery got taken down that easily. He trails off confused. Jin confirms the truth. The monster got Jinsu's invisibility skill and jumped Joe Hackery while he was out there flexing on Jin and Seoyun. Joe Hackery fought back and killed it, but not before getting fatally wounded. Mr. Choi mutters that Joe Hackery got what was coming to him, taken out by the very skill of one of his victims. He thanks Jin, says they'll talk more later, and tells him to get some rest. Later, Jin checks on Seoyun. Dude's completely drained, so he drops onto a bench, but he still needs to check his status. He pulls up his status window, and on the Draw of Fate section, a triangle pops up. He remembers from earlier, the triangle in the info drawer unlocked subcategories. He taps it. Now he's got photos of mana users he's met. Fengxian's card shows 99 mana per summon, and Jin, with only 10 mana, thinks that's straight up correct. Behind Fengxian, there are 3 others, Jaya and Mikkel, showing 347 and 361 mana per summon. No normal user could afford that. He wonders why only Jaya and Mikkel are listed. So what happened to the other dudes? Then he figures it out. They must be people he's actually met in person. The real value of this skill is summoning them and using their talents. He decides he should start meeting low-level famous folks to practice. The last person on the list is Winry Makina, and her cost is a ridiculous 999 mana per summon. That's when he realizes he needs to get his mana capacity up. ASAP. Stats can go up by leveling or through Draw of Fate, But right now, he's got no mana left. He puts that on his to-do list for tomorrow. For now, he tries an info draw. The pink mist rolls in, and Jean shouts, "Come to Papa," but nothing shows up. He face-plants in disappointment. At midnight, Jin's standing in an empty field, nice and safe. Mana's full again. He activates Draw of Fate, hits the button, and bam, cards start floating all around him. He picks one and summons. But something feels off. Unlike when he summoned Feng Xian, something about this one is messed up. He panics a bit, then realizes he summoned Lu Xian, the walking L that brought down the whole Su kingdom, basically known as the god of uselessness. Then suddenly, Lu Xian starts talking, calling Jin's words disrespectful and rude. Jin asks if it's really him. Lu Xian confirms and drops some wild intro, calls himself the one above all, the Lord of Lords, second ruler of the Shu dynasty. Jin's clearly not vibing. Lu Xian notices and tries to defend himself, saying strength isn't everything. Jin just checks his phone, wondering when this guy's gonna poof out. Lu Xian, kinda salty, tells him to quit whining and respect his talents. Jin checks his own status. Sees strong luck, level 2. Not impressed. Luck sounds lame. But then Lu Xian starts flexing. Says his luck is legendary. He survived Cao Cao's army at Changban, became crown prince, became king of Shu, and even after trashing his kingdom, got to live his best life somewhere else. Jin's still like, what's it got to do with anything? It doesn't help kill monsters. Lu Xian sighs like Jin's hopeless. Jin finally asks what he's even getting at. Then suddenly, it clicks. Lu Xian's talking about gambling. Jin opens the info draw again. It says it's free today. He slams yes, and a golden capsule drops. He hugs Lu Xian like he just won the jackpot, saying they've got to meet again. Lu Xian gets nervous. Dungeon raid info pops up. Skills tone rewards in 3 months. Jin's over the moon. Skills tones are worth billions. Lu Xian reminds him he's still standing there. Jin laughs and asks why he's being so sweet. Lu Xian says he's grateful Jin summoned him. Jin wonders if he was chilling in heaven. Lu Xian clears that up. He's not the real deal, just a replica made from recorded info. Jin's jaw drops. Draw of Fate literally builds living copies with the same powers and personalities. Lu Xian says Jin is his creator, his noble summoner, and that he's thankful. Jin's still trying to wrap his head around it. Lu Xian tells him to stop overthinking. This power is a gift. Use it. Everyone Jin summons will help him. Jin thanks him. Lu Xian's time runs out. He disappears, saying it was a pleasure. At the Justice Guild, Mr. Choi straight up announces they're shutting it all down. With barely any members left, dungeons are a no-go, scouting costs way too much, and all the rumors about recent deaths trash their reputation. He apologizes and takes the L on himself. Later, he asks Jin Jungdo if he's still planning to stay in the game as a user. Jin's like, yep. Mr. Choi tells him not to expect that kind of lucky streak again. He checks if Jin's really down for it, and Jin just smiles, saying this is exactly the life he signed up for. Mr. Choi hands him an application for the National Association of Mana Users Academy, since the Justice Guild can't help him level up anymore. Sion's going to join him too after she heals up, though he's not totally sure she'll want to keep going. Jin thinks she's too damn stubborn to quit. Mr. Choi knows both of them are reckless as hell. He gives Jin a modified mana watch that was found on Joe Hackery. Hackery was part of Karma, the biggest international guild out there, run by the Pope. Those guys are full-on fanatics. Mr. Choi tells him to stay sharp. They just lost someone important, and there's no telling how those freaks might react. Jin's got a feeling this whole Karma mess might be the real reason the guild was shut down. Mr. Choi tells him to keep his guard up and says he'll warn Seo Yun too. Jin thanks him. Mr. Choi thanks Jin right back for being part of the Justice Guild and wishes him the best. Jin thanks him for everything. Next day, he tries the info draw, but it's dry as hell. Lu Xian tells him that luck isn't everything. Jin agrees. He's still just a level 2, and luck alone isn't going to carry him forever. Lu Xian suggests pulling more allies to boost his stats. Jin gives it another go, but flops again. Lu Xian's bummed. Day after that, Jin tries again and finally pulls another ally. Now that he's in the academy, Jin updates his mana watch at the Awaker to match entrance requirements, so he's officially good to go. He thanks the king of all weapons because right now, even at level 2, his stats are cracked. According to him, it's all thanks to the golden card he pulled from the Draw of Fate. His newest ally is Bradamanti, one of Charlemagne's 12 paladins. Then out of nowhere, someone steps up to him and asks if he's the one who summoned her. He's confused, doesn't know who she is, until she introduces herself as Seo-yoon. That's when it hits. She's the same girl who used to sprint for the best seats at his game tournaments back when he was a pro gamer. The memory hits hard, and he's ready to dip, but she stops him. That alone has Jean sweating, thinking she might have figured out he knows her or what her ability is, even before her Manhwa watch gets updated. He's spiraling inside, wondering how he's going to play it cool. But all she does is brush a rice grain off his shirt, and they're back on track. Jean starts thinking maybe Seon's already caught on that he's hiding something, but is just pretending she hasn't. That hits him harder than any boss fight. Sometimes, she honestly feels more mature than him. At the National Association of Mana User Academy, there's a rule. Before anyone can step into a dungeon, they gotta survive a whole month of mandatory training. If a user's part of the guild, they can get trained there. But if they're solo, it's the government-run academy for them. Still, tons of users prefer guild training since it's all about those one-on-one sessions, unlike the academy where it's group lectures and overcrowded classes. Another major reason why people aren't vibing with the academy is the entrance exam. Jean Jungdo didn't expect the place to be so packed. According to Seo-yoon, the test is about to start. The instructor, Kim Sung-tae, a rank B user, steps up and announces that the exam's kicking off. He points at the punching bag next to him and tells everyone to smack it as hard as they can. Score above 30 and you pass. Then he calls out Mr. Choi Janwon to go first. Mr. Choi thinks 30 points is light work, and he's about to ace the test in one hit. He swings with everything he's got, but the score flashes 27. Disqualified. He instantly starts raging, saying the machine's busted and begs for another shot. The instructor walks up, punches the same bag, drops an 88, and calmly tells Mr. Choi the machine's fine. He's just out. Then he waves in the next applicants. Second guy walks up, hits a weak 10. Out. Next dude tries, and only gets 25. Also out. Then someone scores a clean 30 and barely passes. Now it's Seon's turn. She punches with full force, nails 67 points, and passes easily. The instructor sees her raw strength and wonders why someone like her even showed up here. She could have joined any guild she wanted. Jean Jungdo congratulates her, and she says he better do even better than her. Then comes Mr. Jungdo's turn. So far, only 30% of applicants have made it. Jin's standing there, not even sure if his half-baked powers are enough to carry him. He's told to hit when ready. Good thing he's got a little trick, a secret boost that gives him plus 10 to his stat. He punches, and boom, 91 points. The room goes silent. Everyone's stunned. That's just 6 points short of the Academy's all-time highest record. The instructor calls him a solid pass. Seon's visibly annoyed. She knows this guy is hiding something. Jean sees everyone gawking and realizes he's attracted way too much attention. A month later, 3 dudes keep bugging Mr. Cho, offering him stacks of cash if he just tells them where the Sanus is. But he already told them. She's on vacation after getting hurt during a raid. They keep pressing, saying they'll do whatever he wants in exchange for a hint about where she's staying. He shoves a form in their faces that says she's in the academy, but they don't buy it. After all, she's not even part of Mr. Cho's guild. Right then, one of their guys calls and says he found out about the saint. He tells them to send scouts to the academy.